Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. Actually, let me just adjust my screen here a little bit. There we go. I think that may work a little bit better. There we go. So it's good to be back here again. I know I've taken, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks off from doing these webinars. I just needed to take a break from it, but I'm glad to be back. So the way these webinars work, for those of you that are new to them, is you create them with your questions. And the way to do that is over here on the bottom screen, over there on the right-hand side. At the bottom is a chat box. Write your question to me through the chat box. The only thing I ask is that you only hit enter one time as you're writing the question, because if you hit enter more than once, it actually sends the question to me in multiple pieces. And keep in mind that you're sending questions and others are sending questions. And if you send it in multiple pieces, sometimes they get mixed in with the other questions and it's hard for me to put it all together. Okay. During the webinar, I'm going to be posting those questions so that everybody can see them on the screen, so you'll be able to see them. I'm also going to read them too. And the reason that I read them is that sometimes they're hard to read on the screen, but also in the recorded version, sometimes it doesn't show up so well. So yes, I am doing a recording of this tonight, and tomorrow morning around 6:30 a.m. Seattle time, so 3 hours different than East Coast time here in the United States. And the reason I have to say here in the United States is we have people listening in from around the world on these too. So it'll be Pacific Standard Time, which is Seattle time, at about 6 or 6:30 in the morning. You'll get an email from me that will tell you that the recording is done and that I have posted it and it's ready for you to take a look at. And it will have the links for you to use as well too. During the course of the webinar tonight, I probably will be doing some screen shares from my computer of my writings about Lyme disease. Those I've put into something called the Treat Lyme book, which is basically an online site. It's not a hard copy book, but it's an online information site about Lyme disease that's organized into chapters. I haven't been writing as of late, mainly because I've gotten frustrated with my site. I've been having some technical difficulties, and I've actually come to the conclusion that I'm probably going to need to hire somebody that is more skilled at running such a site than I am. I've been maintaining it by myself for some time, but I think I'm going to have it redesigned and back into a way that it's going to function a little bit better. So just want to let you know, I don't know when that's going to take place, but I finally have reached that conclusion that it's getting to be a little bit beyond my abilities to do. So you'll notice that there aren't any new postings on that site, but I will tell you everything on that site technically is still current. Those ideas that I discuss on there are still current. So if you're looking for information between webinars about ideas that I have about Lyme and what to do with various aspects of Lyme, take a look at that site. And I will also be showing you some of those articles tonight as well too. All right. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to take the first question. And hello, Jackie. Let's see. Good evening, doctor. I was diagnosed with pseudotumor cerebri 8 years ago, very ill, severe pain for 3 years, found severe mold in the attic, then I moved. 3 years ago today, Igenix Western blot was Lyme positive, seems also Babesia and Bart. I have been so worried about Herxing, I promised myself I would begin treatment with you. Let's see here. This fall, let's see, approximately 6 months ago, I had a new tick bite in New Jersey, 3 weeks of doxy, 2 weeks off, then 3 more weeks of doxy. Last day of meds, I was knocked out by a seizure. I assumed a Herx, you mentioned possibly Bart. MRI showed a low-lying tonsil in my cerebellum. I may have an Arnold-Chiari 1 malformation. Also, a small pituitary gland. Can 25 years of Lyme cause these? I think what you mean by that is all the problems you were just talking about. Similar symptoms, migraines and fatigue. The neuro-ophthalmologist said I have pseudotumor now. It feels like Lyme. Can Lyme cause MRI findings? Is it possible I fought 25 years of Lyme with 6 weeks of doxy and now have MRI findings, or do I likely still have Lyme, Babs, and Bart? That's a lot of questions there. And Jackie, I may not be able to handle all aspects of it. I mean, if you do come out here. I'll be glad to help you, obviously, with some more thorough input, okay? But if you've had Lyme for 25 years, first of all, 6 weeks or 5 weeks of doxycycline is not going to be enough to get rid of it, unfortunately. At least I don't see that as happening. The shortest course that I have ever seen somebody improve in my clinic after they've had Lyme for multiple years is actually 6 months. But an average length of treatment for Lyme is 2 years, okay, once you get it, all right? Now, in terms of, and that's an average, okay, that means that one of my people actually that I treated got better in 6 months, all right? And then some people, it takes 3 and 4 years to get better. So I just don't think that 6 weeks is going to be enough, okay? All right, then in terms of the conditions you have, an Arnold-Chiari 1 malformation, everyone, is a situation where part of the brain looks like it's starting to go through the opening of the base of the skull, basically. It's not supposed to, but there's various types of that malformation, and they call one Arnold-Chiari malformation 1. And in most people, even when you see it on an MRI, it is a benign condition. It does not cause problems, okay? I just want you to know that, okay? In terms of your, let me see, you mentioned there was another MRI finding. A low-lying tonsil in my cerebellum. I suspect that is cerebellum, everyone, is a part of the brain that's back here. I would suspect, Jackie, that also is a benign finding that probably is not giving you any problems. So did Lyme cause your Arnold-Chiari 1 malformation and the low-lying cerebellar finding? No, those are probably something separate. And probably if you didn't have Lyme and they weren't trying to figure out why you had a seizure, they might not have ever seen those, and those situations would probably not cause any problems at all. In most people, those are what I would call benign situations, okay? Now, in terms of your seizure, it is possible that as part of a Herxheimer reaction on doxycycline that you had a seizure. It is also possible that doxycycline, as a side effect, triggered a seizure, although I would not call that a common thing that can happen from it, okay? So I think I have just answered all your questions. Let me see here. Can Lyme cause MRI? Yeah. Can Lyme cause MRI findings? Yeah, but probably not the MRI findings you're having. Usually MRI findings of Lyme will be areas where white patches that will show up in the brain of various kinds. That's usually what an MRI will look like. And there's certain areas of the brain that they'll be located, but it's not the kind of findings that you're having, okay? Yeah. So anyhow, I think that answered your. Can Lyme give you pseudotumor cerebri? I'm not aware that it does. I've never quite seen that happen. And everyone, what pseudotumor cerebri means is pseudo means fake tumor, and it means that there isn't really a tumor that's seen. So nothing shows up in an MRI that looks like a tumor. But it's a situation where if you look at the back of the eyeball, when we look in the back of the eyeball, we can see where the eye nerve, the optic nerve, comes into the back of the eyeball. And in people that have increased pressure in their brain, often there will be a way that the optic nerve looks when it comes in the eyeball that suggests there's increased pressure in the brain, okay? And so if you have the look of the optic nerve and yet you have normal brain pressure and no tumor in the brain, we call that pseudotumor cerebri, and meaning there's not a brain tumor that's giving that kind of a problem. I have never seen that is caused by Lyme. I'm not saying it can't be. I just haven't seen that situation, nor have I seen others describe that as well, Jackie. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Thank you for your questions tonight. I got to clean these out so I can move on to the next ones. Bear with me here just a minute. Hello, Charlene. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. You mentioned that you were concerned about IV vitamin C doing damage. Can you repeat why? And thank you, and hope you have a great evening when done here. Thank you. I have some interesting plans later, so thank you. I appreciate that. Although it'll be a little bit late, so they're not going to be long plans this evening at all. But anyhow, okay. So high dose vitamin C, and so let me tell you what I mean by high dose vitamin C. So some doctors will do IV vitamin C using doses of vitamin C that are in the range of 30 to 50 grams. Okay, keep in mind that a pill of vitamin C you often take can be 1,000 milligrams. So we're talking 25 to 50 or 30 to 50 times that. Okay. And the reason you can't do that orally, if you took that much vitamin C orally, you'd have probably a really upset stomach, but you have bad diarrhea. You start getting diarrhea from vitamin C orally if you try to take about 10,000 milligrams or more. All right. So when you start using vitamin C at the dosage of the 30 to 50 grams, even though vitamin C at lower doses is an antioxidant, when you get into those high doses, it becomes an oxidizing agent. And oxidizing agents damage fat membranes. Okay, so they could start, so keep in mind your cell membranes are fat membranes. And the energy factories that are found in every one of your cells, they're called mitochondria. Their covering is also made up of a double layer of fat. All right, now, generally, we are designed to deal with oxidizing agents. Inside of our cells are antioxidants. We make lots of antioxidants. But that's to keep up with normal amounts of oxidizing agents, all right? Now, other oxidizing agents that we could use to kill germs would be the high-dose vitamin C, hydrogen peroxide IV. You could do ozone IV, or you could do rectal ozone. Those are all oxidizing agents, okay? Now, what my concern is that I think on a limited basis, they do a good job of killing germs. And they kill germs by damaging the membranes of the germs. And also, they kill them by causing damage to the DNA, the genetic structure of the germs as well, too. The problem I have is that we have no studies about long-term safety of doing repeated oxidizing agents. And although I think due to our ability to make antioxidants, we might be able to keep up and not have immediate damage from repeated use of oxidizing agents, there are no studies that have been done looking at months and years of doing oxidizing agents to kill your Lyme germ. And I think my greater concern is that we may cause damage to ourselves, our own cell membranes, and even our own genetic material. Okay. Now, I will also tell you, there are some studies that say that when you do oxidizing agents, that the cells are able to produce more antioxidants, but I still have never seen long-term studies that say that they can keep up with the damaging effect or overcome the damaging effect that you might see from using oxidizing agents, okay? So I know there are some clinics like Envita and Spinagle down in Florida that do a lot of oxidizing agent therapy. I'm just skeptical of it. I think that maybe for a 1 month or 2 month course, it might be okay, but I would not build years or multiple months of treatments around it because of concerns I have about potential damage. All right? All right. Thank you for that question, Charlene. Good luck to you. And thank you for wishing me well with the rest of my evening tonight. Let's see. Oh, Jackie, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. Hello, Rita. Let's see. Is colloidal silver a viable alternative to antibiotics got treating Lyme? If so, what would the amounts be to be effective? Thank you, Dr. Russ, for what you do. So colloidal silver, there are some people that feel that they get improvements with it. My experience in working with a variety of people that have done it separate from me, because I don't recommend it at my practice, but people that have tried it on their own, is that there really are mixed results. And in fact, I think the majority of people do not get benefit from doing colloidal silver. Okay, so I would put the odds at maybe 20 or 30% that it might help. There is a risk that you run into with silver, and that is it can accumulate in the skin. And if you get too much in you, it can actually give you a blue hue to your skin, or we call it blue man syndrome. Okay, and sometimes you can even spot people that have been doing colloidal silver extensively out in my waiting room. I can just walk out, I can see they're the people that have that blue glow about them. So I'm a little hesitant to use colloidal silver on any kind of an ongoing basis. And in general, I just don't see that people get overwhelmingly good benefits from being on it. Okay? All right. Thanks for the question, Rita. Hello, Kit. Let's see. I was diagnosed positive with Lyme and Bartonella in 2013. I stopped treatment after 5 months after no symptoms. Now I have shin and bone pain, and the soles of my feet hurt occasionally. My recent CD57 was 400. It appears I have Bartonella only and not Lyme. Do you think it is just Bart? Let's see. And then, Kit, you have a second part to your question here. Let me see. If it is Bartonella, would Sida, if Lyme and Bartonella, would Acuda and Houtunia be a good option for treatment? Okay, so I'll try to answer that. All right, so when we treat Lyme with antibiotics, and if you've had Lyme in you for a year or more, and I'll talk about Bartonella in a minute, but for Lyme, if you've had Lyme in you for a year or more and you treat with antibiotics, I am one of many doctors that manage Lyme that don't think we ever get rid of every germ. That probably the best we're doing is knocking the Lyme under control so that your immune system can keep it under control, okay? And so for people, once you've been treated for Lyme, if it's been in you for a year or more, there is a possibility down the road you might go into a relapse, okay? And probably the majority of people at some point will relapse. The thing about relapses, though, is they're not going back into the multiple months and multiple years of treatment again, okay? Often with a relapse, if you get back into treatment right away, usually talking about maybe 3 to 4 months of antibiotic treatment and you're back on your way again, all right? One other thing I'd caution you about relapses, when they start looking like a Lyme relapse, keep in mind that sometimes from having been on all those antibiotics, even if you're doing great things like nystatin and probiotics to prevent yeast from coming on, a common thing that looks like a Lyme relapse is that after you stop all those antibiotics, even years down the road, you're set up for still getting too many yeast in your intestines. And if you get too many yeast in your intestines, they trigger your immune system to make inflammation chemicals called cytokines. Just like Lyme triggers the immune system to make inflammation chemicals called cytokines. And when we look at what Lyme symptoms are, they really are too many cytokine symptoms, all right? So if you get into what looks like a Lyme relapse, I'm going to talk about your Bartonella in a minute, but if you get into what looks like a Lyme relapse, keep in mind there's a good chance it could even be just too many yeast triggering cytokines that looks like a Lyme relapse, and it's not. So if you start getting symptoms look like a Lyme relapse, make sure you look to see, do you have increased sugar cravings? Are you gassy or bloated? Do you have any rectal itching? Sometimes too many yeast will release enzymes that can give your skin, make it so that your skin develops acne or pimples. But anyway, you want to look to see, is there too many yeast? And if it is, treat your yeast. That often is going to take care of those symptoms that look like a Lyme relapse, okay? Now, when it comes to Bartonella, in my experience, if you treat Bartonella with a 2 to 3 antibiotic combination, usually 2 is enough. Sometimes I will use 3 antibiotic combinations that target Bartonella. If you use at least 2 and you get your Bartonella treated for 4 to 6 months, 95% of the time, you will be done with Bartonella. You will not get relapses again, okay? That's just been what my experience is out here, all right? There's no studies that back any of this up. Frankly, we just don't have many Lyme studies actually that look at what's effective in treatments or how long do we treat or any of that. But typically, if you treat with at least 2 antibiotics that target Bartonella, once you've treated for 4 to 6 months and you have no symptoms when you're done treating of Bartonella, you are done. You're not going to relapse. But 5% of the time it happens, okay? And so generally, if I get somebody that is relapsed, I'm going to want to use something different than the first time I treated. And often, I'm going to suggest doing a 3 antibiotic combination, all right? Now, generally, I would recommend prescription antibiotics, and that is because I think they work better than the Sida acuta and Houtunia that you mentioned, all right? 2 antibiotic combinations for Bartonella will work about 80 to 85% of the time. The 3 antibiotic combination, probably similar, all right? Why would I use 3 if you've relapsed? Because I would want to even be stronger. I want to put more things in at those germs. When I look at using Houtunia and Sida acuta, those two herbs are the herbs I will use to treat Bartonella. And I got the idea to use those from Buhner, as in Buhner herbs. Many of you may have heard of Mr. Buhner. And what I have found by using Houtunia and Psittacuta, that those two will work effectively for Bartonella about 70 to 75% of the time, okay? So I give you better odds at getting your Bartonella out if you are using the prescription antibiotic regimens. There's about a 10% better chance of getting the Bart out and not getting into future relapse again than the Houtunia and the Psittacuta, okay? So many of you may be wondering, well, what would I use? How do I use the antibiotics? What would I use together? How do you use the Psittacuta and the Houtunia? So rather than taking the time in the webinar tonight, I'm just going to show you how you can look that up later. Keep in mind for right now, remember I said I'm having technical problems with the Treat Lyme book. The Treat Lyme book at this point is something you could read without a subscription. Okay, I know it looks like it's not a paywall, but you don't. I had to take the subscription paywall down because it was making it so no one could read anything, even if you were a subscriber. That's why you need to get some help looking at it. So anything I show you tonight, you can look at. You don't have to necessarily have a subscription to read the Treat Lyme book, although I appreciate your financial support for the efforts I put into that too. All right, so I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to just show you where you can go look at some things here. treatlyme.net. And this is where I've organized anything I've written about Lyme, and there's quite a bit here actually too. And again, I'm hoping probably towards the beginning of the year to get back to writing and adding and editing some of the information that I have here. But for now, this is what we've got. Okay, so what you can do, look in the chapters tab here. And in terms of Bartonella treatment and what I would recommend for anything, take a look at this tab called Infection Treatment Plans. All right, and this is my chapter on what do you take, all right? And so there is an article I've written called Kills Bartonella, A Brief Guide. Click on that, and then there you're going to see how I recommend using the Psittacuta and the Houtunia. And I talk about 3 tiers of combinations of antibiotics that you can use. So take a look there. I even give you the doses, and I give you the recommendations about how long to use them, okay? All right, now earlier tonight, I talked about yeast, and I just want to show you where you can look at that. So I actually have a whole chapter on yeast. It's right here. And in this chapter, I talk about the various diet you might use to help deal with yeast. I give you some methods to treat. And so in terms of how do you treat yeast, here's my article called Kills Yeast, A Brief Guide. But then in terms of how do you diagnose yeast, a lot of it's based on symptoms. But take a look at my article called A Silent Problem, Do You Have Yeast? And that gives you information about how you would go about figuring out if you might have too many yeast, okay? All right, so let me go back here. Let's see, wait a minute here. There we are. Having a hard time figuring out how to get back here. Anyhow, I hope, Kit, that gives you some help looking at that. Okay. All right. Oh, and the Houtunia does not do anything for Lyme. Psittacuta might, but if you're going to try to treat Lyme, which I don't think you have, I think you're having a pure Bartonella relapse by your symptoms, and that is possible just to have a Bart relapse and not Lyme. But if you were to look at the herbs I recommend, the best herbs I like using for a Lyme germ treatment is to use Banderol and Cemento. Many of you may be familiar with them. I think they work as well as prescription antibiotics do for the majority of people. They work about 85 to 90% of the time. Okay, and there's articles I have on Banderol Cemento in the Treat Lyme book. In the Treat Lyme book, I call them Otoba bark extract, which is the Banderol, and cat's claw, which is the Cemento. Okay, all right. All right. Hello, Val. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What are your thoughts about replacing atovaquone with cryptolepis as a part of a babesia treatment? Atovaquone seems to be producing some grasping something. Well, let me see if I can find the rest of your. It looks like you rewrote the question here. I'll post it up. What are your thoughts on replacing atovaquone with cryptolepis as a part of babesia treatment? The atovaquone seems to be producing some neuromuscular side effects. What side effects are associated with? And I think maybe you're asking me. Look, so it looks like you're having stiffness, balance issues, and you want to know, does cryptolepis give similar side effects? At least that's what I can tell from. It looks like you wrote the question a third time. Okay. Anyhow, so the so atovaquone, everyone, is found in a product called Mepron, which is a thick yellow liquid. You would do 5 milliliters of it twice a day. We use that to treat babesia. Or it's found as part of a combination prescription product called Malarone. Malarone has atovaquone and a quinine medicine called Proquinil in it. Okay, but atovaquone sometimes is a very fat-soluble medication. So things that are fat-soluble get into fatty tissue, and it just so happens that our brain, the nerves in our brain, are all covered by a layer of fatty insulation called myelin. And I think what happens with the Malarone, or the atovaquone, excuse me, is it is so fat soluble that sometimes it concentrates around the nerves and becomes a nerve irritant, irritates the nerves. And so you can get neuromuscular side effects like you're describing. All right. That has not been my observation with the herbal medicine called cryptolepis. And so just to be thorough here, so if anyone's trying to find cryptolepis later, I want to just spell it for you. It's Cryptolepis. There's not a T in there that as it's not leptis, it's cryptolepis. Okay. So if you're trying to search it out, I just want to let you know. The company where you would get cryptolepis from, my favorite company for that, is a company called Woodland Essence. You can Google them. You'd find them. They're based out of New York, and I think they have some very good products. In terms of cryptolepis, I like it actually for treating babesia. I think it's not quite as effective as an atovaquone is, but it works about 75 to 80% of the time versus a Mepron or a Malarone that have atovaquone in them are going to work around 85% of the time. So you give up about 5% effectiveness, okay? If you're going to do it, I usually recommend you get a pure cryptolepis product. I know Woodland Essence has something called cryptolepis, Sida acuta, and alcornia, so they call that CSA. I just don't think you need to have those other herbs or poisons in with the crypto. I think crypto can work well on its own. And so usually I'll have people do the cryptolepis as 5 milliliters 3 times a day. I have not seen it be a neurologic irritant the way that the atovaquone can be. Okay, so just to let you know that. Okay, so I hope that answers your questions. Now, keep in mind, everyone, when you're treating babesia, you usually want to treat for at least 4 to 5 months. We try to treat through as long as red blood cells live. They usually live once they come out of our bone marrow where they're born. Our bone marrow makes red blood cells. Once they leave the bone marrow, they will be in circulation in our body for about 3 to 4 months. And we find it best to treat through at least one life cycle of your red blood cells. Okay. So 4 to 5 months of treatment is what you usually need to do. Okay. All right, Val, I hope that gives you some useful information. You can read more about cryptolepis and other things you might use to treat babesia in my article called Kills Babesia, A Brief Guide. You'll find that in the infection treatment plan chapter in the Treat Lyme book, okay, which I was just showing you earlier. Thank you for that question, Val. Good luck to you. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I have Lyme and Bartonella. Is it okay to pulse amoxicillin and probenecid, such as 2,000 plus milligrams of amoxicillin every other day? When starting antibiotics, is there a problem with resistance if you stop after a few days due to severe Hercs? Okay. So let me talk about a couple things here. So amoxicillin is an antibiotic that is useful for Lyme. It does not have any activity against Bartonella. I just want you to know that, okay? And what it does for Lyme, amoxicillin is effective at treating the spirochete form of the germ. Probably does not have any intracellular activity. Does not treat the cyst form of the germ. All right. So the Lyme germ lives in you in three forms. There's a spirochete. That's the corkscrew-looking thing that many of you see pictures of on the internet when you look up Lyme. It also has a form of the germ that lives inside of the cells. We call that intracellular Lyme. And then there is a microscopic cyst form of the germ as well, too. The way that amoxicillin works is it literally makes it so that as the covering of the spirochete develops holes in it, it makes it so that it can't repair itself, okay? Now, interestingly enough, there have been some Petri dish experiments that say that maybe it might work against the cysts, but it doesn't make any sense that it would. So I'm not sure if what happens on a Petri dish corresponds with what happens in a live person. I would never use it to treat the cyst form of the germ, right? Now, the Lyme germ grows extremely slowly. And by some estimates, it replicates about every 4 weeks, maybe every 8 months. Because it grows so slow in a period that you're not taking an antibiotic, it does not come back quickly, okay? So in terms of, is it okay to stop antibiotics or pulse or even take a break? Yeah, it's okay for the Lyme germ. Bartonella, on the other hand, for which amoxicillin is not treating your Bartonella, so I'm not sure if you're taking some other things for Bartonella or not. But Bartonella, on the other hand, I do not do pulsing of antibiotics for Bartonella. I know some of my colleagues do, and I think it just makes absolutely no sense. Nor do I see that it works that well, frankly, too. The reason I don't think it makes sense for Bartonella is that Bartonella replicates every 24 hours. That means in the time that you are off the Bartonella antibiotic, it's coming back. It's making babies and it's coming back fast, okay? So I know there's some of my colleagues that pulse. I get patients from them. I mean, their patients leave eventually and come out here to see me, for instance, because their treatments don't work for Bartonella often. All right. So I find it better if you're going to treat for Bartonella, if you are on Bartonella antibiotics, and you're not with this regimen, unless you're taking some herbs or something else for it, you need to treat Bartonella continuously to have the most benefit of those antibiotics. Okay. All right. So thank you for that question, and good luck to you, Brenda. Brenda, again, if you're looking for the best ways to treat Bartonella, take a look at my article called Kills Bartonella. If you're looking at combinations of antibiotics you can use to treat the Lyme germ, take a look at, actually, I forget what I call it now. Let me go back. I'm going to do a quick screen share here. We'll look at it together here. At my article, anyhow, here's the Kills Bartonella article. And then here's my article about Lyme disease antibiotics, okay? And in here I describe how you build a treatment that treats all three forms of the Lyme germ, all right? All right, let me move back out here. We are again. All right, Brenda, thank you for that question. Good luck to you. All right, let's see. Hello, Louise. Hold on here a minute, Louise. I got to just take a quick drink of water here. All right, let's see. Hi, Louise. Let's see. I'm hoping you can shed some light on a couple of new symptoms I am experiencing. I'm being treated for Borrelia, everyone, that's Lyme, okay? Bartonella, Babesia, and Candida. I'm currently on Bactrim, fluconazole, Abart, Cryptolepis, Cidacuda, and have been on this protocol for 2 months. All right, so just to go over that, the fluconazole, everyone, treats yeast. The Bactrim can help treat Bartonella. The Abart is an herbal treatment from something called Byron White formulas that can target Bartonella. And the Bactrim also, I should mention too, can sometimes help with Babesia as well. And Bactrim may help treat something known as a persister cell in Lyme. So when we use antibiotics continuously to treat Lyme, there's the ability that some of the Lyme germs, about 20% of spirochetes and about 20% of cyst, according to one experiment, will take on what's known as a persister cell state. And a persister cell basically is a form of the spirochete or form of a cyst that goes into hibernation. It slows its metabolism way down and just starts ignoring the antibiotics, all right? So there's some petri dish experiments that have been done by a researcher out of Hopkins, Dr. Zhang, and some of his petri dish experiments suggest that Bactrim may help with persister cells, all right? So that Bactrim, again, could help persister Lyme, would be part of a Bartonella treatment, may even be part of a Babesia treatment. So the Cryptolepis in this regimen could be something that helps with Babesia. The Sitta acuta is an herb that can help with Bartonella and may have some Lyme properties as well too, can treat that. Okay, so I just want to tell you what you're on, basically, all right? Okay, so let me go to the second part of the question here. Let's see, the new symptoms that started about a week ago are extremely swollen glands, especially causing pain in the more anterior portion of my throat, like around the thyroid. I also have ear pain and a twitch in my right ear. I am wondering if this is a Herc's or something else. Thanks for your thoughts. This, if you've been treated for 2 months already, it is doubtful that this would be a Herc's. Herxing usually is something that comes on either when you increase an antibiotic dose or when you've started a new antibiotic, but 2 months down the road, that usually is not suggesting a Herc's. Okay, so what is a Herc's, everyone? So a Herxheimer reaction, or Herc's for short, basically occurs when the immune system, white blood cells, see dead germ parts. So Lyme, primarily Lyme, actually, sometimes yeast as well too. And when it sees those dead germ parts, it reacts by making more inflammation chemicals called cytokines. Now, I briefly talked about cytokines earlier, but let me just say more about cytokines right now. So cytokines are inflammation chemicals made by white blood cells, and they're good and they're bad. So when a white blood cell sees an infection or a germ or dead bug parts, it's going to make cytokines. And what the purpose of cytokines are is they cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help those white blood cells work better. All right, that's really good stuff. But most of the time, though, when you have Lyme, or for many people with Lyme, their immune systems don't do a good job of knocking it out or keeping it under control. And eventually, the immune systems work harder and harder, and they eventually make too many cytokines. And it's too many cytokines that give you what we call Lyme symptoms, all right? So Lyme symptoms truly are excess cytokine symptoms. And so that means that they make it so your sleep isn't good. They can interfere with how your hormonal systems work. They give you fatigue. They make you have brain fog. They make you hurt all over. They can give you neurologic dysfunction. That's what cytokines do, all right? And so when you start killing germs, the immune system even makes more of those, and that's called a Herxheimer reaction. All right, and that's why it looks like your underlying symptoms get worse. But again, usually a Herc's, not usually, but a Herc's occurs when you change a treatment so you get more effective killing. That's usually right at the beginning. It's not going to happen usually 2 months later. So the other thing that could give you swollen glands and make you feel worse is a virus. It could be maybe you got a respiratory virus or a throat virus going on right now. And that can make you feel worse too, because viruses also cause the immune system to make more cytokines, all right? So sometimes when people start feeling worse, we have to think about what else could be triggering cytokines. A common thing could be yeast. I know you're on fluconazole, but often yeast can trigger more cytokines. It's possible, especially this time of year, that people start picking up their usual viral syndromes that go around this time of year as well too. But I would wonder more if this is a viral syndrome happening with you actually, Louise, okay? And if you and I could do a going back and forth where I could ask you questions, I would be able to help sort that out for sure. But I just suspect that may be what's happening here. All right. Thank you for that question. Good luck to you. All right. So one of the things, so I've mentioned cytokines a couple times here. So I just want to show you a couple things here. I'm going to do a quick screen share because the whole issue of cytokines is a big issue in Lyme. the treatment protocol that I've written. I call it the successful treatment recipe. But in here, I talk about the essential steps that you need to build into any Lyme treatment, okay? So it's very important that you just don't spend time killing your germs. You actually have to support the body to help the immune system work right so you can get over this thing. Right, so the first thing you want to do is do things to get sleep. I give you some suggestions here, but you want to get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. These are a few brief suggestions, but for a more detailed set of information, read my article called Sleep 101, The Basics, okay? Where I give you even more ideas, all right? Number 2, I prefer that people, especially at the beginning of a treatment, are on a paleo-type diet, and I talk about that here, all right? Number 3, get your cytokines down, okay? So this is why I'm showing you this. So the reason why I get your cytokines down is cytokines, when they're made in excess, not only give you all the symptoms you have, they suppress the immune system. So often my patients say, well, aren't you going to give me something to boost my immune system? And my answer is yes, take curcumin, because it's going to help lower the cytokines that are suppressing your immune system. Also, get sleep. Sleep lowers cytokines that suppress the immune system, okay? All right, so other aspects of this, I'm just going to walk you through it real quick. I like people to be on something that helps their body deal with stress. That's an herb called ashwagandha. I like to correct hormonal problems like adrenal and thyroid. I talk more about it there. I like people to be on a good multivitamin, and there's a number of multivitamins you can find actually on my supplement site. I like to deal with too many yeast if they're there. And in this section of my treatment plan, I even tell you how you can figure out if you have too many yeast and then what you can do to get rid of it. Okay. Again, you want to get rid of too many yeast because too many yeast also trigger cytokines. All right. Number 8 in my treatment plan is treat your Lyme infection because that also lowers cytokines. Do some basic detox work, and I talk about it here. Number 10 in my treatment protocol is treat your Bartonella and your Babesia. And I would refer you to my Kills Bartonella and Kills Babesia brief guide to figure out what to use for those. And then I got some other recommendations here, but you'll notice I kind of build a treatment in steps. But the big thing is be on curcumin, get your cytokines down. Okay, that's a really important thing to do. Okay. All right, and let's see. I think there was something else I was going to show you here. Oh, yeah. In terms of cytokines, then, curcumin is my favorite thing, but there's other things you can use to lower cytokines too if that is not working well enough. So there's an article I've written about that. It's called Control Cytokines, A Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms and the Immune System, okay? So what does that mean? Well, again, if you lower cytokines, you will boost the immune system, all right? So in here, I talk about other supplements like something called FibroBoost, which is a very strong antioxidant. I talk about using glutathione. These are all additional things you can use to lower your cytokines. Okay, so read that article. It's really critical to lower them. And if you're having a Herc's, there's steps you can use with those supplements I was just telling you about to get your Herxheimer under control. Again, I don't think you were having a Herc's, but there you go. All right. So let me look on to our next question here. Hello, Barb. Let's see. Thanks, Dr. Ross. Have you treated people with Morgellons? What combinations of meds did you find most effective? So yes, I have. I've treated quite a few people, or quite a large number of people with Morgellons. So Morgellons, everyone, is a skin problem that develops in people that have immune compromise. And so if we look at the limited information we have on Morgellons, because we just don't have a lot of good science about it, it seems to happen about 95% of the time that people, when they have Morgellons, 95% of those people have Lyme. And probably the remaining 5% or so have HIV/AIDS, okay? So this is a condition of the skin that occurs when you have immune suppression going on, all right? Because Lyme suppresses the immune system, and of course, we all know HIV and AIDS, as a part of that condition, there is immune suppression, all right? So what is Morgellons? Well, Morgellons is a skin rash and itching that might develop, and people will often have to scratch, but also you just get breakdown of the skin, and you get scabs that form, and sometimes within the skin breakdown, you can get filaments, either white colored or black colored. to date, we do not know what these filaments are. We really don't know what they are, nor do we fully know why this happens other than we see them in immune suppression, all right? So my treatment approach to treating Morgellons is to figure out, is there Lyme or is there HIV? That's part of my treatment approach, okay? Generally, there's Lyme. And I usually, in terms of treating Lyme, the antibiotics that I find most effective at helping Lyme and the Morgellons is to use a combination of Biaxin, which is also called clarithromycin, 500 milligrams twice a day. I like to combine that with a sulfa antibiotic called Bactrim, 1 pill twice a day. That seems to be effective for Morgellons. Now, a lot of people have sulfa allergies, so if you can't use that, well, there isn't a decent substitute for it. And then in addition to that, you need to treat all 3 forms of the Lyme germ. So any of the combinations that I write about in my guideline about, or my guide for using antibiotics for Lyme, those are things that are going to work too, okay? So basically, Barb, the things that work are treat your Lyme disease. For 85% of people, do a comprehensive treatment. And that comprehensive treatment involves all those steps that I just showed you in my successful treatment recipe, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Barb. Hello, CJ. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. What can you tell me about MSH? How do you test for it? So by MSH, I think you mean melanocyte stimulating hormone. Melanocytes actually are that would give our skin the pigment color, okay? And there is a test you can do called MSH testing. It's a blood test, all right? And so where this idea of looking at MSH levels come from is out of the work of a Dr. Richie Shoemaker. Shoemaker is a physician based out in Maryland that came up with a whole elaborate theory and has been kind of a leader in the field of dealing with what's known as biotoxin illness. And by biotoxins, I mean mold toxins and sometimes Lyme toxins too. What he's been able to show in his work is that around 25% of all people, when we get mold or Lyme toxins in us, cannot get them out. We don't have the ability to remove them. What happens in 75% of people is if we're genetically programmed correctly, our immune systems will see those Lyme or mold toxins and will tag them for removal. Those tagged products get broken down and get passed out of the body. But if they are not broken down correctly, these toxins, either Lyme or mold toxins, will go to the liver. The liver is supposed to transform them from a fat toxin into a water-based toxin. That transformation doesn't take place well, and then those toxins get moved out into the intestines still as fat-based toxins, and they literally get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream, and they keep somebody permanently ill, all right? So though when you have elevated toxins, according to Shoemaker and some of his work, it can set up this whole elaborate inflammation cycle, of which as part of that, you can have alterations in your MSH level, all right? And so Shoemaker would have everyone test for it. To be honest, I haven't found ever any benefit in using a lot of the Shoemaker protocol other than his ideas of binding toxins, his wanting to go in and correct MSH, VIP, ADH level, all those other things that he does. I just don't find much benefit. So I'm not a big extensive tester of it, but yeah, you could test for it. You just order an MSH level basically at a regular lab. That could be done. All right. All right. Thank you for that question, CJ. Hello, Valis. Hi, Dr. Ross. What are your thoughts on replacing a Tovicol? Oh, we already answered that earlier. Hello, Serge. Let's see. Hello, I would like to know more about Lyme diagnostic, generally speaking. What do you think about Horowitz MSIDS questionnaire? How do you evaluate a IGeneX IFA result of 40 plus band 41 only on a Western blot if many of the symptoms were present for years? Okay. So let's It's a big topic. The whole area of how do you diagnose Lyme is a big topic. All right. So when you diagnose Lyme, there's actually 4 things that need to be considered. Number one, is there a risk of getting the illness? All right. So the biggest risk would be if you've had a known tick bite, for instance, and you live on the East Coast of the United States, where in New Jersey has been shown 95 to 100% of ticks carry Lyme. Okay. That's a huge risk. All right. But 50% of the time that people have Lyme, they don't remember a tick bite. And so if you do activities that might put you in proximity to ticks, like being an outdoors person, being a deer hunter, being a hiker, having pets that haul ticks into your homes, that increases your risk too, okay? But I will also tell you, I know that the prevailing viewpoint is that it's all ticks that transmit this thing. I think there may be other things that spread it. The reason I say that is, again, 50% of the time people don't remember a tick bite, all right? And so there's Polish studies that show that flies, fleas, mites, and mosquitoes can carry the germ. All right. Now, carrying the germ doesn't mean they transmit, but maybe they do. Maybe that's part of that 50% that don't remember tick bites. Okay. But I'm still going to consider, if I'm trying to figure out if somebody has Lyme, I'm looking to see, is there a chance they could have gotten it? And there's an increased chance if they have had tick bites or could come in contact with ticks. All right. Second thing I look at is, do you have enough symptoms to suggest it? All right. So the Horowitz questionnaire, yeah, it's a good questionnaire. I mean, it gives you useful ways of looking at, do you have enough symptoms that say you might have Lyme? I think it's a valid questionnaire. All right. The third thing that I look at is, are there any physical exam findings? And frankly, there aren't many. I mean, the majority of things that people, they'll look tired. Sometimes it's easy to tell they have a lot of mental confusion as I ask questions of them. But generally, a lot of people look somewhat normal with Lyme, other than looking tired. And then finally, the fourth thing I will consider is there a supportive test? Okay. And there's a variety of tests these days that we can do. And so you've done one kind here, and it's the most common one. But let me talk about the testing you've had done here. So, and then finally, before I talk about your specific test results, it is possible to have Lyme and have negative testing. All right. So even with the best testing, around 15 to 20% of the time that somebody has Lyme, the testing will be negative. So sometimes we have to make a decision to treat Lyme based on what the picture looks like, okay? And one of the things is make sure that you've ruled out anything else that could look like Lyme, all right? So in terms of your testing, you had something done called an IFA along with a Western blot. And an IFA is similar to an ELISA test. Both IFAs and ELISA basically look to say, they answer a question, which is, do you have any antibodies in your system that might be made against Lyme? Okay, it's a could test. And if it comes back positive, then we're supposed to do a second part, which is see if the antibodies in your system actually do attach to the Lyme germ. And that's the test called a Western blot, all right? Now, the IFA and ELISA testing actually are quite poor tests. And I don't do them. I don't even do the IFA. Even if it's an IGeneX IFA, I don't do them. Because if we look at studies about them, they will only find Lyme when it's there 50% of the time. I think it's just a waste of money to do it. So I don't do them, okay? So yours was 40 equivocal plus. It doesn't mean anything. Even though it was equivocal, it still doesn't even say you have Lyme. And even if it came back positive, you would still need to see for sure, do you have antibodies that attach to the Lyme germ by doing a Western blot, all right? Now, in terms of your Western blot, if you did it through IGeneX, and I think you did because you said IGX, I think you mean IGeneX. The IGeneX way of doing a Western blot is better than the FDA CDC test kit that is used by most commercial labs, okay? IGeneX has done a better job of developing a Western blot test. And what IGeneX does is they look to see if you have antibodies against 12 proteins. And they look to see if you have antibodies made from 2 kinds of families. So there's a family of antibodies called IgM, and there's a family called IgG, all right? All right, so on using the IGeneX method, a test is positive if you have antibodies against 2 of 6 different proteins. And those 6 proteins are the 2325, which is also called band 2325, 31, 34, 39, 41, and 8393. Right? If you have antibodies against 2 of those 6, that's a positive test. Okay. Now the problem with having antibodies only against 41 is 41 is a protein that can, for which there are similar proteins found on any germs that have flagella or tails. So it is possible, if you've had some other bacteria infection in you in the past that had a tail on it, that if you made antibodies against it, they might just be attaching to the Lyme protein 41. So protein 41 by itself is just not enough to say if you might have Lyme. So from what you've told me here, I cannot say if you have Lyme or not. I don't know. I would need to ask you a lot more questions about your risk factors. I'd have to ask you a lot more questions about your symptoms, although it looks like you have a Horowitz score here. Anyhow, that's what I would say at this point, Serge. Let me show you some more information about testing for Lyme and an article I have about how do you diagnose Lyme too. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. And so take a look at my chapters tab here. And then you want to, there's a chapter I have called How to Diagnose. And probably, I think almost 4 years ago now, maybe longer, I did a webinar on how do you diagnose Lyme disease, okay? And I recorded part of that webinar. And so there is a 15-minute recording that I made of that webinar. And you will find it in this article. And for some reason, it's not. There it is. So here is the 15-minute recording, okay? So I would go ahead and play that. I walk through all the symptoms. I walk through the various tests. I talk about a number of things here that you could take a look at, okay? So that, and then the other thing, you take a look at the article I've written about Lyme disease testing. And so that'll give you a good overview of the various kinds of testing we can do to look at Lyme as well too. All right. Let me go back here. All right. So Serge, I hope that gave you some information there too. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Shannon. Let's see. My doctor has told me based on my blood work that I have mycoplasma and probably Lyme and wants to treat. I don't have any symptoms and I feel great right now. Am I correct in not wanting to start any treatment? I would not treat. So let me tell you why. So two things. Number one, it is very possible to get false positive tests. All right. So any test that we do, I don't even care if it's for thyroid or whatever it is possible that the test result we get back is wrong. All right. That's called a false positive test. And the chances that a test is really correct increase with the number of symptoms you have of the illness. All right. So if you don't have any symptoms, it's very possible that that test could be wrong. All right. Number one. Okay. Now, about mycoplasma, I'm just going to talk about that for a minute. So mycoplasma pneumoniae is the bacteria that they're probably talking about. Mycoplasma is a very common bacteria. That's a respiratory bacteria, and it eventually can get, when it gets in us, can live inside of our cells, all right? We can cohabitate with it. In fact, we can cohabitate with it so well that it doesn't cause most people any problems. Our immune systems keep it under control. So if we were to pull 100 healthy people off the street and do studies to see if they might have infections in them, we would find in about 15% or so of people that they have elevated antibodies against mycoplasma pneumoniae, chlamydia pneumoniae, maybe a virus called human herpes virus type 6, which is a respiratory herpes, not sexual herpes, something called parvovirus 19, B19, Epstein-Barr virus, the monovirus, cytomegalovirus. Okay, these are all infections that occur in healthy people, and they occur about 50 to 20% of the time in healthy people. So just getting a positive test doesn't mean you need to treat it if you're already healthy, okay? Now, Lyme, let's just say that that test is not a false positive in you. Let's say it really is in you. I usually suggest people don't treat in that situation too, and here's why. the reason we use antibiotics in Lyme, if you've had it in you for a year or more, and we have no idea how long you've had your Lyme in you, but if it's been in you for a year or more, the reason we use antibiotics is to decrease your symptoms and get you well. Well, if you're already there, why would we use the antibiotics? If you have Lyme in you for a year or more, even when we use antibiotics, I don't think we wipe it out. I don't think we get rid of it. I think we just put it back under control. There's also another concern I have about using antibiotics when you have no symptoms, and that is that the germ could potentially get more aggressive. It may fight back, okay? So it's very possible that when we use antibiotics, that germs learn resistance. And the more virulent, the stronger strains of them would be the ones that would survive. And that down the road, they overcome your immune system's ability to keep them under control, and you might cause a greater problem for yourself, all right? So there is a time and place to use antibiotics, though, and that is when you have a lot of symptoms. Because in that situation, the relative risk of potentially causing a stronger germ is outweighed by the potential benefit you're going to get by using the antibiotics, okay? So no, I do not treat a test. I treat based on what your symptoms tell me, all right? So I hope that gives you some useful information, Shannon. Good luck to you. Thank you for that question. It was a good question. Actually, all the questions tonight have been good questions. So yeah. All right, let's see here. Hello, Judy. You'll see, could the herbal antibiotics used in the treatment of Lyme cause or exacerbate candida? Yes, they can. It's an interesting question, though, because when one of the things that I, in my practice, as many of you know, and because I write about it extensively in the Treat Lyme book, and you hear me mention it in these webinars a lot, I like using the herb products called Banderol Cemento. I think that they work about 85 to 90% of the time, which is the same effectiveness chance I think that prescription antibiotics have, okay? All right, now one of the situations that I will often use Banderol Cemento in especially is if I've got somebody that keeps getting repeat yeast infections, I am often going to want to get them off prescription antibiotics and change them to an herbal antibiotic regimen. And when I first started doing the Banderol Cemento, I thought that would mean that they're never going to get yeast again because herbs are supposed to not lead to easy yeast. Well, that's not true. Even herbal antibiotics can knock down good bacteria in your intestines. And when they knock down good bacteria, that makes it easier for yeast that also live in your intestines to grow too much, okay? But I will tell you the chances of getting yeast overgrowth on herbal antibiotics are less than prescription antibiotics, all right? But no, you can still get yeast problems while you're on a Banderol Cemento, Sida acuta, Houtunia, any of the herbs that you might use for treating Lyme and co-infections. It is possible that you might get a candida. It just isn't as great of a chance as the prescription antibiotics, okay? All right, thank you for the question. Hello, Jennifer. Hold on here a minute again, everyone. Let's see. Hi, Jennifer. See, I have Lyme and Bart. I have made good progress with most of my symptoms except my stiff, cracking, sore neck. Any suggestions? Is this Bart or Lyme? Typically, cracking, popping, soreness in the neck is Lyme. It's a very Lyme symptom, actually. Sometimes can be one of those things that is the last thing to go away. So when it comes to Lyme symptoms, even as you're getting better from treating Lyme, there is not a uniform speed to which every symptom goes away, okay, or a uniform rate to which it goes away. And sometimes there could be some things that are kind of the nagging last symptom to improve, all right? If, however, you've been treating, let's say, for a year or more, 9 months or more, and you still got this cracking, popping going on, one thing you might want to consider doing is doing some supplements to support the cartilage in your neck, to help the cartilage in your neck regrow. So I have seen that, Lyme, in trying to survive, likes to bury itself deep into tissues and get far away from blood flow, because blood flow has oxygen, and oxygen is an oxidizing agent. We talked about earlier tonight, oxidizing agent that can kill Lyme, okay? So Lyme's designed to survive, so it wants to get quickly out of blood, and it likes to burrow into tissues. It likes to go into your joints. It likes to get into joint coverings. It likes to be on muscles and tendons. It likes to get on nerve coverings, okay? inside the joints, it even likes to dive further. It likes to bury itself in cartilage. And to bury itself in the cartilage, it has to release enzymes that can break the cartilage down, okay? So your joints, wherever two bones come together, wherever your neck bones come together, for instance, the surfaces of the joints and those neck bones are covered by cartilage. The job of cartilage is to help bones glide over each other easily because cartilage is smooth, makes things so they can rub over each other easily. But also that cartilage acts as a shock absorber. All right. So if you wear that cartilage down, you're going to tend to have a lot of inflammation and pain. I think Lyme can do that. One of the things I have found helpful in my practice is to try to repair that cartilage. And one of the things you can use to repair the cartilage is glucosamine sulfate. Glucosamine sulfate is a building block for cartilage. It is weaved together to make cartilage, basically. And so you would do glucosamine sulfate 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And I recommend a Thorne product for that. I think Thorne has just some high quality products, and I tend to see better outcomes when I use Thorne. There's a variety of brands I actually use. I'll show you those here in a second. If you're wondering what are good brands of supplements to use from some of the things I recommend in the Treat Lyme book, I'll show you where you can figure that out here in a second. All right. So anyhow, Jennifer, I would do 500 milligrams 3 times a day, and I would do it over the course of 2 to 3 months to see if you can get some benefit from it. If you do not get benefit by 2 to 3 months, just by 3 months especially, stop it. It's not going to work, okay? But it can work, in my experience, about 70 to 80% of the time. The other thing for the pain, get on curcumin. I've mentioned it a few times tonight, but 500 milligrams, 1 pill 3 times a day can be useful, okay? All right. So let me do a quick screen share here for a minute. This is my supplement site. This is where my patients get their supplements, and anyone can get supplements here. But in terms of brands that I recommend, again, part of the problem with brands in supplements is the only way supplements are going to work is if you're using a good quality substance. Most of the products that are out there in supplement stores have been investigated by private investigators, and they've been found not to really carry adequate amounts of the supposed active ingredient, or they just don't have enough of it in general. And in addition, if you use poor quality substances, they may have artificial fillers that could be harmful for you too, okay? So these are the brands. If you look here in my supplement store, you can see this by manufacturer. These are, if you come back and look around here later, you'll see the brands that I carry. These I consider to be good products, okay? So for instance, I carry a lot of Research Nutritionals. In fact, I think there's only 2 of their products I'm not carrying right now. And for instance, I recommended tonight, let's see if I got their curcumin here. Nope, I have not put their curcumin on here, but they even have a curcumin product too. The curcumin product that I like, that I use a lot of actually, is a Thorne product. And if I can get this to work correctly, a Thorne product. And the Thorne product I like for curcumin is something called Veriva 500, which is this one right here. All right, so we carry that here. Also, there is a Thorne glucosamine sulfate as well too. Okay, all right. So anyhow, if you're looking to see where you can get things, I carry them here. Feel free to buy from my store, but I'm also showing you so that you can see what I consider to be good quality products, because if you're going to use, recommend either in these webinars or in the Treat Lyme book, make sure you're using something that has a better chance of working for you. Okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Jennifer. Good luck to you. Let's see here. Hello, Serge again. Let's see. Hello. Have you ever seen a very high ferritin level, close to twice the upper limit, in a Lyme case? So, Serge, ferritin for everyone. Ferritin, everyone, is the storage form of iron in the body. It's how we store iron, all right? And it can be low. If it's low, it means you're losing iron somehow, or you're not getting enough in your diet. I like to keep my ferritin levels at 40 or higher. If it's less than 40, it sometimes can be part of fatigue. And if it's less than 40, sometimes it leads to hair loss, actually, okay? All right. Now, if you get ferritin that's high, though, that can be inflammatory. And one of the potential causes of high ferritin is a medical condition called hemochromatosis. And if you have hemochromatosis, it basically can lead to a syndrome that looks very similar to what Lyme disease does. You can have marked fatigue and marked pain. So, Serge, without knowing for sure what your ferritin level is, make sure that your providers have considered whether you might have the medical condition called hemochromatosis. All right. They may have already said that's not high enough to warrant being called hemochromatosis, but I would definitely make sure they have considered that. Okay. So it's called hemochromatosis. All right. All right. Good luck to you, Serge. Oh, and have I seen Lyme cause it? No, I have not seen Lyme cause that before. I have seen it occur in people that have Lyme, and in addition, they have high ferritin or hemochromatosis, but I have not seen Lyme lead to that. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Hello, Pamela. See, hi, Dr. Ross. I was reading that a Herc also consists of ammonia load in the bloodstream. If so, what would be a way to pull the ammonia out of the system? Many thanks, Troy. You do? I don't actually agree with that. I don't agree that it has to deal with ammonia load. To me, it has actually to do with toxins that get released from the inside of germs. So you have to be able to adequately detox. And the greatest thing that it has to do with is actually that the germ, the dead bug parts trigger the immune system to make too many cytokines. So the things I like to do, again, lower your cytokines, use curcumin. And if the toxin load is too high, get on glutathione. I talk about that in the cytokine article that I was showing you earlier tonight. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Pamela. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. Hi. Appreciate your help. Wondering if there is a purpose to retesting with IGeneX after years of treatment, especially the Babesia fish and PCR, Bartfish, and another Western blot. Okay. So let me try to break that down in pieces. Okay. So for Bartonella and for Babesia, IGeneX does the PCR testing and does the fish test. Okay. So fish testing stands for, it's a fancy acronym that stands for fluorescent in situ hybridization. All those words mean, what they mean is we take a fluorescing agent, a fluorescing thing, and we attach it to the germ, the genetic material of the germ. All right. So it makes it so we can see under the microscope if you have a germ. So a fish test is a way of seeing if you actually can see the living germ. All right. PCR testing is a way to see if you have the DNA of the germ in your blood. And if you have the DNA of the germ in your blood, you have it. All right. So fish and PCR is a way of looking to see, is the germ really in you? It actually identifies the germ. You see the germ. Okay. So those can be helpful to see if you still have the germ in you. I think they're valid. Okay. Because when you treat Lyme co-infections, the Babesia and Bartonella, you should be able to get rid of those germs. All right. Now, keep in mind, though, that even through IGeneX, the fish and PCR testing does not identify all strains of Babesia or Bartonella. So keep in mind, we estimate multiple strains of Babesia, and IGeneX is only able to determine, I think, 2 of those. And Bartonella, same thing. We think there may be 30 strains or so of Bartonella, and IGeneX is only capable of determining 1 or 2 of those as well, too. Okay, so it's just, you got to beware. You can have negative testing and still have those, all right? Now, the Western blot test, I don't think is useful. And that is because you can still have Lyme in you and have negative Western blot testing due to immune suppression. Your immune system is suppressed by Lyme. It can't make the antibodies, okay? Secondly, even if you're in remission, the Lyme germ can be hiding in such a way that the immune system just can't see it. That doesn't mean, though, that it's still not in you, all right? All right, and then also, even at the end of a Lyme treatment, I know some of my colleagues go back and retest the Western blot to see if they're done with treating. Well, again, I think if you have Lyme in you for a year or more, we're never getting rid of the germ. So what's the point in testing to see if the germ is still in you with a Western blot if we know that it's probably still in you? Doesn't make any sense, all right? So now I would not advocate doing a Western blot because it's not a way of visualizing if the germ is really there, all right? Now you could do a Lyme PCR test, or you could do a Lyme blood culture, but the PCR is only going to find Lyme if it's in you 30% of the time. The blood culture, there was a limited study, and that's done through a lab called Advanced Laboratory Services. They had a study, I think, that involved about 45, 47 people, which is very small, and it's hard to generalize to large populations what their findings were. But they found that they could find Lyme 95% of the time. But that was a study of only 45 people or 47 people. It's too small to say that's going to be the real truth in the real world. And I think I have a hard time believing it actually would be the truth in the real world because Lyme doesn't readily live in the bloodstream, even when it's in you. It gets out of the bloodstream. So it's hard for me to imagine that you're going to be able to find it that successfully with a Lyme disease blood culture, okay? All right. So thank you for that question. And good luck. Hello, Kid again. Let's see. Can you respond to the CD57 score? My CD57 was 400. Does it mean that Lyme is not relapsing? If I have a high CD57, it may not be Lyme, but it might be a co-infection. So the CD57 is a type of white blood cell that can be low about 80% of the time that somebody has active Lyme, okay? That means it can be normal 20% of the time that somebody has active Lyme. But if it is low, it is a suggestion. If it's normal, it doesn't mean you don't have active Lyme. You have to look ultimately to figure out if you have Lyme based on what your symptoms tell you, okay? A CD57 I consider to be low if it's 150 or lower, all right? All right. Hope that answers your question. Thanks, kid. Good luck. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Gary. Let's see. Regarding lumbar kinase, does it change the intestinal lining, cross into the blood and into the blood-brain barrier, and does it modify any coagulation parameters? I don't know if it changes the intestinal lining. I'm not quite sure what you're asking by that. Can it get into the bloodstream? I do believe it does, just because of some of the results that I see. Does it modify any coagulation parameters? It can, but not the ones you can measure. I think that's what you mean by that. So lumbar kinase, what it does is, so it's an enzyme made by earthworms, okay? There's a variety of enzymes in it. So it comes from the skin of earthworms. It can, what it does is it breaks down blood clotting proteins, a protein called fibrin. And so fibrin, that blood clotting protein, is found in the matrix of biofilms. So a biofilm is a layer of slime that can cover Lyme germs and block out treatment. That layer of slime is a mucopolysaccharide sugar that's held together with a protein skeleton, and that protein skeleton is made up of the blood clotting protein fibrin, okay? Now, we also use fibrin as part of blood clotting, all right? And so if you develop blood clots, fibrin is part of those blood clots. Now, lumbar kinase can break down fibrin. I have never seen that it changes any of the blood clotting parameters on testing, though. I just want you to know that. Okay? All right. I hope that answers your question, Gary. Good luck. All right. Let's see here. Hello, Serge again. Let's see. I've already done the genetic hemochromatosis test. It's negative. Thanks. Oh, well, thank you for that follow-up. Okay, so again, then back to your question. I haven't seen Lyme trigger a higher iron level. I'm not quite sure why that's happening with you. All right. Hello, Mary. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you so much for this webinar. You're welcome. I started Doxy 12 days after my bite that occurred just this August. Does this mean I will have chronic Lyme as I didn't start right away? I did 6 weeks of 200 milligrams twice a day. Was this enough, and was it the correct thing to do? And what should I do next? All right. So, Mary, the generally, if you start treating Lyme in the first month after your bite, and that is what you did, you started 12 days. That is within the first month of your bite. Just using doxycycline for 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks actually, seems to work about 90% of the time. There's still 10% of people, if you treat for just a month, will eventually go on to develop chronic Lyme. But in 90% of people, you're going to totally have wiped the germ out. And on top of that, you even did it for 2 more weeks, okay? So generally, I like to use the antibiotics so a person after their bite is symptom-free for at least a month in an acute situation like this. So I suspect if you're symptom-free and you were symptom-free for at least a month, you probably got it all taken care of, okay? And there probably isn't a next step that you need to take, okay? All right. So good luck to you. And that was a good dose, actually. 200 milligrams twice a day is a high dose. I think that should be effective for you, all right? So chances are you took care of everything, all right? 90% chance. Good luck to you, Mary. Hello, Serge again. Let's see. Hello. I tried curcumin following your recommendation, discovered that I can't support it. Even just 1 or 2 pills a day, I feel bad, kind of stoned all day long. How could this be possible? So there is a Marty Ross rule of medicine, which is anything can happen to anyone with anything. All right. So every one of us can have side effects to anything, even if they are not common side effects. What I would tell you is in using the curcumin for multiple years in my practice, probably for the last 10 years, I've been using curcumin. I haven't seen somebody get stoned on it before, I have a feeling. But that is what happened to you. Why? I don't know. We're all genetically made up different. Our chemical reactions are a little bit different, even though we're all humans, okay? So that's why I have my rule. Anything can happen to anyone with anything, okay? So don't use that again, all right? The one thing you might want to try Surge then, if that's not helpful for you or you have side effects, is take a look at, I would use something called quercetin. That's Quercetin. Before I started using curcumin, it is what I use to control cytokines, all right? So quercetin is a bioflavonoid chemical that comes from the skin of colorful fruits and vegetables, and it does get inside of white blood cells and limit their production of cytokines. It's a little bit more expensive than the curcumin, which is why I tend towards using the curcumin these days, but it can work quite well. You'd want to do 500 milligrams 3 times a day and see if you get some help with that, okay? All right. Good luck to you. All right. Hello, Mary again. Let's see here. So, hi, Dr. Ross. Why is a bacteriostatic drug like Doxy used for new infections rather than a bactericidal one? Good, because it works. It seems to work. Also, one thing I want to let you know, that dose of 200 milligrams twice a day, there is some science to suggest that can be bactericidal. Okay, so everyone, these words bactericidal and bacteriostatic. Bactericidal means it kills things. Bacteriostatic means that it doesn't directly kill the germ, like zapping it or bursting it, for instance. But rather what it does is it makes it so the germ can't grow, and by that mechanism it dies. And in fact, what doxycycline does at lower doses is it limits, and even at higher doses it would, but it limits protein production in the germ. It makes it so the germ can't grow proteins, and therefore it can't repair itself, and it can't grow, and it dies from that, okay? But in addition, it has a bullet effect at higher doses, a bactericidal bullet effect. There's some evidence that would suggest it can be bactericidal at the higher doses like you did, okay? All right. So this is something else tonight. So with Mary's question, that is the last question. I actually went through every question tonight. I want to let you know that has never happened in one of my webinars. So either you didn't ask a lot of them or I was proficient at getting through it. I don't know. But this is the first time I've actually gone through every question. And it's right at the time I usually would stop. So this has worked out well tonight. So listen up, everyone. I've been been good to be back here again. I took about a month off, but I enjoyed being here with you tonight. Sign up. There are 4 more webinars that I have planned. And I think I'm here next week, and then I'm gone for a week, and then there are 3 more scheduled after that, okay? The reason I'm gone in a week is I'll be on my way out to the iLives conference out in Boston, which I'll be going to coming up. Tomorrow morning, you'll get an email from me at 6 to 6:30 a.m. in the morning that will have all the information you need to look at the recorded version of this webinar. In a second here, I'm going to take you over to the Treat Lyme book, where if you want to sign up for next week, you can go to the webinars page there and sign up, or feel free to kick around and look at any of those articles that you want to, because right now they're all free. Okay, there isn't a paywall that works there, so feel free to use the Treat Lyme site as much as you want to at this point. All right. So everyone, good to be here with you tonight. I'm going to redirect you over to the Treat Lyme book, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.